Hi, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. We're just finishing the setup on the YouTube Live. Commissioner Salazar Hall will be chairing today.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Afternoon.
Hello. Reverend Dave. Hello, this is Reverend Davis. How are you, Dante?
Sir?
How are you, Steve? Nicole?
I'm good. Pastor Davis, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Things are going well.
Things are going
Family's
well. Family's good.
Good, 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 good.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, just to let you know, we are live on YouTube at this time. And we're just checking to confirm you have a quorum.
Perfect. I think we can definitely wait a couple more minutes since the meeting isn't scheduled to start till 5 anyway.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor. Welcome. Commissioner Salazar Hall is conducting the meeting today. We're just waiting for a few members. Just wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, just letting you know you do have a quorum in attendance whenever you are ready to begin.
Okay. I think we're missing Carol Shiflett. I think she mentioned she may be having some technical difficulties.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, this is Coletta. I'm troubleshooting with Miss Carol. I'll have her back on in just a moment.
Perfect. Let's get started then. Welcome everybody to the September 30th, 2020 Racial Equity and Policing Commission meeting. My name is Nicole Salazar Hall. Let's take a minute and review the public meeting guidelines. This meeting will be an electronic meeting pursuant to the Core Commission determination that conducting the meeting at a physical location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The commission meeting will not have a physical location. All attendees will connect remotely. You may follow along with the meeting at the SLC Rep Live Commission Meeting YouTube channel. Members of the public may also listen to the meeting via the electronic meeting platform Zoom. Connection information can be viewed on the website at https://www.slc.gov/boards/REP agenda, or by calling 801-535-7644. See, we don't have any minutes for review today. Before moving to our policy review discussion, I would like to recognize that Mayor Mendenhall has joined the meeting tonight. Mayor Mendenhall is asked to share a few words with the commission. Thank you for being here, Mayor. I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you for making a moment for me to address you. I'm happy to be with you tonight and glad to see so many faces and names on everyone else. Thank you for participating. I think the great opportunity of today and of this year, to be sure, but certainly since the creation of this commission, we've had no shortage locally and nationally of additional tragedies that have further underlined the importance of the work that we have asked you to do. And I know that today you'll begin working with the facilitator that's been selected. I'm grateful that you have that capacity coming to assist in the pretty tremendous endeavor that sits before you. But I bring to you my continuing commitment that Salt Lake City will do everything that we can to empower this commission, support the commission, and I know that there are a number of Salt Lake City administrative staff and city council staff here to assist in this meeting, and we will continue to come in whatever form that you need us to make sure that you have all of the tools and the time, support, and space that you need to do this critical work. I also want to mention that the focus of racial equity is a tremendously broad and complex in some situations in terms of digging into policy and perhaps going into case histories and other things that may inform your discussions. There are certainly many other forms of discrimination, lack of access, oppression that could be explored. But we have asked you specifically to look into the racial aspects of Salt Lake City Police Department's culture, policies, and budget. And I thank you for that, and at once am humbled by the scope of the work that we've asked you to undertake. So I appreciate you giving me a moment, and again, we'll reiterate our commitment to you. What you need may yet be discovered through the conversations that you will have and the listening that will happen throughout the community. But keep this door open, and I will keep my ear listening for what your needs are and how we can support you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing the work that you are doing today and for the months to come. I look forward to hearing from you, as I'm sure that the City Council does as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
If there's any questions or if you want to have a dialogue, I'm here for that too.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I need to announce that we are moving a standing item from section, I believe E, subsection C, up to now. So before we move to policy discussion, before we continue with policy discussion, We have our facilitators here today, and we would like to introduce the facilitators or have them introduce themselves, provide a little bit of background about themselves and how they are going to be able to help us with what is going to be a very large endeavor for us. So I'll hand over the time to the Langdon group to introduce themselves. And Dante, how about you start?
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And first, I just want to say thank you to the mayor for her vision, her foresight, and her commitment to this work and to this commission. Leadership really does start from the top and it works its way through the organization. And clearly the commitment and your passion shine through and are really felt in this work. And so I just want to say thank you. It's heartening and it's just so important that you're here in the manner that you are really expressing your commitment. So I just want to say thank you for that. Again, my name is Dante James. I live in Denver. And me very briefly, I describe myself as a recovering attorney as well as a father and husband. And I've done some version of equity work for a very long time, either as a public defender, either as working for different mayors across the country, doing equity work, working with police departments and evaluating everything from their scenario-based training to their policies to varieties of things. And my real goal and hope is to be able to assist this commission in really truly creating outcome change. And I would suggest that that takes true internal culture change for a police department. We can make policy suggestions all day, but a policy doesn't change the culture and change the outcomes on the street. And that's really what I think we're looking for, is different outcomes. And so my role, however I can be of assistance in guiding, suggesting, just supporting the work of the commission, that's really what my goal is. I was a military policeman in the Army, actually a canine cop. So it was interesting to see the most recent issue coming out of Salt Lake, I believe, related to canine. So I have some idea what it's like to strap on a weapon and go to work every day. So can have some of the conversation as well. So I'll just pause and again, offer my thanks for our ability to come in and do this work. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves, maybe starting with Josh.
Thank you, Dante. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. It's an honor and privilege to be able to be involved in this effort and support the best we can. I've lived in Salt Lake City for many years, attending the University of Utah, and have worked there for many years. Lived in New York, California, and Brazil, and I'm living in Utah now. I have a legal background similar to Dante and have worked for several municipalities, but now facilitate and mediate full-time and work in system and process design. And I'm here to support our lead, Dante, and our team is here to support him and the commission in this work moving forward. I'll pass it to my colleague, Siobhan, who's also, I'm with the Langdon Group, I'm associate director there with Siobhan, and have worked a lot with the city in the past and appreciate their innovative approach and daring approach to tackle such issues that are so important.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. Thanks for having us here. My name is Siobhan. The spelling will throw you off every single time, so please just Siobhan, listen, ignore the spelling. It's too much. I am, like Josh said, with the Langdon Group, been doing work with Salt Lake City for a number of years. So we really, while we have done a lot of work in this same space by tackling really tricky problems, really difficult and entrenched problems, we have done that work for years as well. But on this commission, we are really here to support you and support Dante and to lend, because Dante is in Denver, and that's a real thing. We are in Salt Lake. We are here to help lend our experience for Salt Lake and for reaching out to the community of Salt Lake and to to really serve that function on this commission, and we are honored to do that. So I will pass it to Larry.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Larry Schooler, father of two, husband of one, but the father of two part explains my headset. My kids are 9 and 6, and if I weren't wearing this headset, you wouldn't be able to hear anything I was saying. So I apologize for looking like a Macy's parade host, but that's just the way it has to be. I want to echo Dante's thanks to the mayor. I've worked for 3 mayors at the city of Austin, including Steve Adler, and have the utmost respect for what mayors do and have to weigh and balance in their work, especially in this time. And we haven't even mentioned COVID-19. So my thanks to you for your support of this important work. I'm a facilitator by profession. In fact, this is my second diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitation of the day. I was assisting the Florida City County Managers Association board with their work earlier this morning. The first part of my career is with NPR, and the second part, the last 12 or so years, has been as a professional facilitator, both inside the city of Austin, Texas, as well as for a number of other municipal governments around the country. I have a PhD in conflict resolution with a real focus on the public policy sector. And my research is in truth and reconciliation with a heavy emphasis on law enforcement. Excited to be part of this team and look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're quite excited to get started and get to work on these heavy issues. Next, we'll move on to the policy review portion of our agenda. The first topic listed is a school resource officer and the discussion of a subcommittee for further research on that specific issue. So on September, and I want to say it was September 16th, there was discussion, I started that discussion about creating a subcommittee to do a deeper dive into school resource officers and what we could possibly do to improve that program or what changes could be made to that program as it relates to Salt Lake City schools. There was a suggestion the commission consider making a formal motion to create the subcommittee. I don't disagree with that. I think this is, if we're going to be creating subcommittees, I think this is something that the larger commission does need to have a vote on. So, and having the larger commission vote on the creation of a subcommittee will create greater clarity and transparency for the work that we're doing. So is there a motion to create a subcommittee to work on school resource officers, which will report back and coordinate with recommendations with the full commission? Yes, Moises?
Yeah, I'll do what you just said right now. Do a motion to start a subcommittee for SROs, assess, and based on assessment, provide recommendations.
I also second that motion.
I stick. Oh, okay.
All right, so we have Moises making the motion, Samantha, Commissioner Eldridge seconding the motion. Do we have any discussion?
For discussion, we probably ought to at some point talk about how many people need to be on this commission and decide whether those are commission members or other people.
That's a good point, Reverend Davis. My assumption was that the subcommittee would consist only of commission members, but I would welcome discussion as to whether it should include others. I think with the makeup of our commission, it probably should stick with just commission members, but I'm open to suggestions.
I do know that some of the members on the youth subcommittee are interested. And so some of them will not be, of course, official members, since we only have 2 rotating through to be commissioners at the same time. So some of them will be in another subcommittee, but would be interested in participating in this as well.
So maybe what we ought to do is say commission and youth commission members would be part of it. Nicole, if you think that would work.
I think that would be absolutely appropriate. That, I think, was the entire purpose behind creating a whole separate youth subcommittee, was to have that youth voice. That many of us, not to name names, Commissioner Prospero, but are of the older generation may not be as in touch with the issues that are being experienced by our younger generations. So I think their voices would definitely need to be involved in this subcommittee. I think they absolutely should be. I would not feel comfortable proceeding unless they were involved, honestly.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, I promised myself I wouldn't speak, but may I ask you just a question here at this point?
Yes.
So in past task forces where I've facilitated subcommittees formed, and the couple of differences that I wanted to just flag are, number one, your commission has a weekly cadence, a weekly schedule. And so that's an enormous commitment of time. And I'm just, curious about, how we make how we evaluate the feasibility of a subcommittee meeting. But the second thing is a question around the public or private nature of the subcommittee's meeting. I think it's important to figure that part out, because obviously transparency is a major value for you all, but public meetings, of course, take a lot of logistical planning. So I just wanted to flag those two considerations, obviously not taking a position one way or the other, but those are some experiences I've had in past task forces.
Those are absolutely valid. And my understanding is we need, I believe it's 6 commission members meeting at any specific time to follow any requirement of the Open and Public Meetings Act. And I'm going to defer to Katie Lewis on that specific issue, but I seem to remember her saying 6 is the magic number. So if we have any voting members beyond 6, it would need to become an Open and Public Meeting Act sort of meeting. So I think we should definitely keep it below 6. I don't think the youth subcommittee counts because they are not voting members. We only have 2 voting members at a time from the youth subcommittee. So it'd have to be 4 of us and at most 2 of them to be involved.
And Commissioner, if I might, in again, thinking of the bigger picture in terms of time commitments, et cetera, I might suggest thinking about enlarging the name of this subcommittee, if you will, as opposed to making it so specific, so that there might be other opportunities for, if you named it community engagement, it could address SROs, it could address other types of community involved engagement by the police, as opposed to just narrowly focusing the name of it and the start of it and its focus right at the beginning, as opposed to being able to enlarge the work once maybe a policy recommendation or something comes out of that committee.
So do you have a suggestion in terms of a larger name?
Again, maybe community engagement. If we're thinking about, I recognize that's SROs are just dealing with youth, but that could be one aspect to a subcommittee entitled community engagement. I believe that there's an expectation of a community engagement plan of some type of review for what the police are doing coming out of this commission. So that might be a way to weave that into some of the work.
Thank you.
Yes, I know we'll be doing some listening sessions. We'll start working on those now that you guys are on board, which I think is going to be necessary to really get an idea of what the community is feeling about policing in Salt Lake City, what issues really need to be taken to the forefront. Of course, we have our suspicions of what needs to be really addressed immediately, but those listening sessions will take place. So I'm thinking we could start it as a community engagement subcommittee that's focusing on school resource officers right now. Mm-hmm. What's your position on this, Commissioner Prospero, since you made the motion?
I'm not sure yet. I'm worried that then that community engagement may take us in so many places that it bogs us down. As you all know, I like to start moving things. I guess as long as we stay focused on 1 or 2 community engagement projects, especially if it's only going to be a few, that's my concern. That there may be so many things all of a sudden popping up that would fall within that community engagement subcommittee, that all of a sudden that small committee is going to have a lot of work to do. So I think as long as it's focused and one at a time or something. And I guess later on, if we need to, we could break it up.
It looks like Commissioner Coombe from the Youth Subcommittee and Commissioner Benude have questions. Commissioner Coombe, I saw you first. So how about you weigh in?
Yeah,
And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm so sorry.
No, you got it right. Thank you. I just kind of wanted to echo, I think that there's for sure risk in having too specific of a scope. I understand that there's risk in having too specific of a scope, but I think I sense more risk in having too broad of a scope. And I think especially given the topic, I think policing definitely has similarities across the board, regardless of the area or facet that it's in. But I think there might be some particular things to focus on in regards to SROs. And so for that reason, I think I'd recommend that we maybe stick to a subcommittee focused on SROs.
Thank you, Ephraim Coombe and Commissioner Benude.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm hoping that we will go around in terms of voting, and I did make my position clear last time in the discussion. I am with Dr. Schooler's point of view. I became part of this committee to look at policing at large, right? And it has a lot of moving pieces. And if we're going to get divided into different committees, I still feel it takes away from the work that we want to do as a group. And now if you're going to make it into community engagement, that includes another layer. And like I have said, there is fatigue in commission members to be involved in so many different commissions. I would rather have this commission look at every aspect of policing in one go. I personally am extremely invested in the SRO discussion, and I do not want to get split from the main group and then go on another pathway, because we are also intersecting with law enforcement, criminal justice, and other issues in the community around this issue as well. So hopefully I'm just voicing my opinion one more time.
Any other discussion on whether this should become a larger focus subcommittee or just focus on school resource officers? Commissioner Shiflett.
Thank you, Commissioner Salazar. I agree with Ms. Luna. I don't think we should stretch ourselves too far because, as she said, we are on other commissioners and events taking place in the community. So I just wanted to ditto what you said. Thank you.
And Commissioner Eldridge, I saw your hand raise.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to provide feedback. I think maybe broadening the scope, but not so large that it's under the umbrella of community engagement, but perhaps something like school safety. I feel that there are a number of commissioners here who are interested in participating in that subcommittee, and that there are also partners in the community who are doing the same work. And I'm not suggesting that we create and start something new, but rather that how can we create better communication across our community partners and our organizations who are already doing the work, and how can we support each other and share information. And I think one concern that I had last week was just the availability and access to data. So it'd be important for me is where's the data and how can we share it?
Commissioner Sanatomanga, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I agree that the SRO issue is very important, and it's something that we need to really be focused on. I think we can do it as a commission and not have to create a subcommission. My opinion is that it's something that is a standing item on our agenda, and we're really focused on it, and we work on it together as a commission.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Darlene. I agree with Verona in Luna as well. I am not in favor of a community engagement approach at all. I think it'll be too broad of a scope and digress from our original task at hand.
To the chair, would it be possible to do a SRO school resource officers task, and then when we finish that, decide whether we want to deal with a different issue?
So my concern, and that's a really good point, Reverend Davis. My concern is there's a lot before us. Changing the culture of an entire police department is no easy task.
Right.
In my mind, is akin to scaling Everest.
Right.
And to do it right is going to take a lot of time and energy. And the school resource officer piece is only one small piece of that. And it's not necessarily tied entirely to changing an entire culture. The SRO issue can be specifically addressed within the MOU between Salt Lake City School District and Salt Lake City Police. So my concern is that in taking on just the SRO issue, that is going to be its own little mini mountain, so to speak. Maybe a Mount Olympus versus a Mount Everest, but still a mountain that's going to require a lot of work. Our meetings are only an hour. And as we've seen over the past few weeks, they're going well beyond that 1 hour. Our bandwidth is pretty limited. So the idea behind an SRO subcommittee is to have several people who believe this issue is near and dear to their hearts. It's something they've perhaps dedicated their lives to, something that has interested them for a long time, to be able to take a deeper dive into, so that the rest of the commission does not have to take that deep of a dive, distill that information, provide it to the larger commission for consideration. It's a model that is not unsimilar to what is used in larger commissions. The Child Welfare Improvement Council, for example, has several subcommittees that takes deep dives into DCFS oversight, grants, even their planning of their summits, their annual meetings. So that was the idea behind me proposing a subcommittee, was that we have a lot on our plates when it comes to racial equity in Salt Lake City Police. And I don't want the SRO issue to go by the wayside, or any of the other cultural issues that we need to address to go by the wayside.
So can I jump in real quick?
Yes, Commissioner Ahmad.
I'm sorry, I cut out.
Okay,
So I think this is an important issue that definitely needs to be discussed. Any school-based issue, you do need the community council, which each school should have and heavily involved. So any school-based decision, you want that community council involved. That's just typical protocol within the school, as well as that, because usually you're gonna have that school admin as well as the passionate people within that school community a part of that. But I love that umbrella under school safety. Right now, we do have an issue with our schools. We do have an issue, especially with the amount of drugs flowing through our schools as well. And exactly how we want to handle that, how we want to tackle that, that's an epidemic going on in our schools, even trickling down to our elementary schools right now, just within Salt Lake County in general, Salt Lake City, and obviously the surrounding cities. So I definitely think this is important. I definitely think we need to hit it, but absolutely, in my opinion, we need to include the community as well within that. That's how change is made within schools.
Madam Chair, if I can just make an observation, and I'll be quiet. Certainly, as we come into this kind of, after the processes have already started, it's not our desire to step on anyone or any process that you've already begun. So just an observation for me, and maybe I'm incorrect with the information I have, is that it's my understanding that there have been 21 policies that have been identified that this commission would like to at least begin the review and tackle on some level. Training is also another component that this commission would like to review and tackle and address. There's only 52 weeks in a year. And if you only meet once a week, for any real depth and breadth of the discussion to make policy change, I'm not sure how all that fits together in terms of your time. So I just offer the observation with no suggestion or comment, just the observation that time is an issue. And I don't know that an entire commission once a week can tackle all of that and really make the progress that I know you want to make.
Thank you for that observation. I do appreciate that. Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Andrew Worden.
Hello, everyone. I agree with Commissioner Salazar Hall on the importance of subcommittees to get the work done. I think it goes in line with what Mr. James just stated just now. And in several of the documents that we have and several of the discussions that we've had leading up to this point, that SRO issue seems to come up pretty consistently. And I think that that would be a good one to get started on the subcommittee. I suspect throughout our listening sessions and our policy evaluations and the work that we continue to do, there'll be other issues that surface that need to be addressed. I think that the most important thing that was just said is this is a one-year commission, 52 weeks in a year, and we started a month ago. So I think that you do not want to overburden everyone, but at the same time, I'm not confident that we can get all the work done that we need to as this body for an hour once a week. So I am in favor of an SRO subcommittee. I'm in favor of that subcommittee model. I've also seen it work on other groups that I work with. So I would be in favor of that. And I definitely think, Mal, that community piece is a critical piece. And we could have our subcommittee make up the membership, and we could bring in the folks that need to be there for that consultation, right? I feel like we could do both of those things. So for what that's worth, that's my opinion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do I have a motion then, a renewed motion, I guess, to form a school safety subcommittee that would address school safety issues?
Commissioner Salazar Hall, I'm wondering, is Commissioner Prospero's motion still on the floor?
It is still on the floor with the revision, I believe, or I guess Commissioner Prospero, the proper form would be to, would you like to amend your motion such that the name of the subcommittee would be school safety, or do you want to proceed with your original motion? Thank you, Ephraim.
Well, that's what I get for doing the motion, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'm okay with changing it to the school safety subcommittee. Yes, that's my motion.
And Commissioner Eldridge, do you still second?
Yes, I still second. Thank you.
At this point, let me get back to my screen. I'll now take a roll call vote. Reverend Davis.
I'll vote aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
Commissioner Prospero.
Aye.
Commissioner Batar. Is he with us tonight?
He is absent tonight.
Commissioner Sanatomanga.
Aye.
Commissioner Ahmad.
Aye.
Is Commissioner Suarez with us tonight? I didn't see her name.
No, Commissioner Suarez is not. Thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Banuti,
Nay.
Commissioner Andrew Werden,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaili,
Aye.
Commissioner Salavi Jr.,
Aye.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Aye.
Is Commissioner Guzman with us tonight, or is he absent due to his resignation?
He is absent, yes.
Commissioner Mbuera,
Sorry, he is absent as well.
Commissioner Shiflett,
Nay.
Commissioner Coombe,
Aye.
Commissioner Tedeschi,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Ms. Trishman, is that a pass?
Two opposed. Two opposed.
Okay. Motion carries. We will form the School Safety Subcommittee focusing on school resource officers. From our last discussion, it sounded like Commissioner Prospero, Commissioner Eldridge, and I were willing to help spearhead that subcommittee. So we will, yes, Commissioner Ahmad.
I would love to be a part of that as well.
I voted no, but I would
Great.
want to be part of it.
Commissioner
I think you have some
Salazar.
I was on mute, sorry. I would love to have you a part of it, Commissioner Banuti. I think you have some very valuable insight. Thank you.
Commissioner Hall, Salazar Hall, can we get clarification from legal staff on the size committee? I understood that if we are less than a quorum, then we could meet without notice under the Open Meetings Act. Can we get a clarification?
Yes. Yeah, do we have Katie Lewis on the meeting tonight?
Commissioner Salazar Hall, unfortunately, you do not have the smarter Katie Lewis, but I've confirmed with her that your quorum number is 11. So long as you stay under 11, you should be fine with the subcommittee.
All right, so we have under 11, so that gives us a lot of room to work, Commissioner Andrew Werden.
Mark, I'm glad you corrected her because I didn't want to correct her.
Thank you. It's Kittrell, right? Not Kittrell.
We've been ordered to figure it out, Commissioner Salazar Hall, by a federal judge. I believe it's Kittrell.
I will go with Kittrell. Yes, Ephraim Coombe.
On that note, I know that there's definitely interest from the youth subcommittee. I know not all of us are here, and so I was curious as to what might be the best way of submitting those names.
Well, since Commissioner Prospero is in charge of the youth subcommittee, I will leave that to him. And so far I have Commissioner Ahmad, me, Commissioner Prospero, Commissioner Andrew Werden, and Commissioner Ahmad, and Commissioner Banuti interested in joining. So that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That leaves four youth subcommittee who could join in. Is that, I think my math was correct there. That's under 10, under 11.
That sounds great to me.
Okay.
Ephraim, we could talk about it this Saturday.
Perfect. Thank
See
you.
what the process is gonna be. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next policy review item is a discussion with Andrew Riggle. He's a public policy advocate and Nate Cripps, staff attorney for the Salt Lake City Disability Law Center. We've been reviewing the interaction of law enforcement with interactions of law enforcement with people experiencing disabilities and mental illness, particularly those individuals who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Did everybody receive the letter to the commission from the Disability Law Center?
Yes.
Okay. And do we have Mr. Riggle and Mr. Cripps here with us tonight to discuss some of those recommendations in the letter?
Yes, I am here, and I see my colleague Andrew down in the corner, so he is with us.
Yes, commissioners. This is Andrew Riggle, and again, we appreciate you providing us with the opportunity to follow up in a little bit more detail on our recommendations to you and answer any questions you may have. I'm going to let Nate lead off, and I will chime in as appropriate. Thanks so much.
Yes, to reiterate what Andrew said, we very much appreciate you all giving us an opportunity to provide some input on this important discussion. You know, I know you've all seen the letter, and I hope you can appreciate we are in no way trying to insert ourselves into this conversation other than just to provide information and not take it over. But we have in the course of looking at the conversations going on nationwide around police violence and the things happening, the intersection of race and disability is, as we believe, a very important part of the conversation. As we note in our letter, estimates of as high as 80% of police brutality involve people with disabilities. Going back to your earlier discussion around SROs, students with disabilities make up 12% of the population, but 25% of the arrests, and 3/4 of those in the juvenile justice system have a disability. So there is a great interaction or an intersection between race, disability, and police involvement. Obviously, you all saw the tragic event with Lyndon Cameron in the last couple of weeks, so we felt it was important to reach out and just try to make sure that we were able to provide you with some information. I know we sent you another document today. I apologize. It came very late. I'm sure many of you had no chance to look at it. I completely understand. We're happy to let you take some time and follow up with any questions you have at a later date, whenever you have a moment, we're happy to do that. But I think, we were in attendance last week and we heard some conversations around CIT and mobile crisis outreach teams. And we wanted to make sure that we provided you a little feedback on that and some of our recommendations that we made in our initial letter and highlight those again in this new document. Specifically just, that MCOT is certainly a great resource, but it does have its limitations. And then, how CIT is used, we would encourage you to look at best practices and how, Salt Lake City uses them, as well as SROs, and maybe looking at putting resources into other programs as opposed to really increasing the use of SROs. I will say that beyond that, we are, as an organization, taking a look at the list of policies you all are reviewing and trying to look at those with a lens of disability. And we would hope to be able to provide more feedback on, the interaction of police and people with disabilities in Salt Lake City and the policies out there and how that can work. I know you all are interested in how we might be able to continue some type of collaboration. And so I would hope that we would be able to continue to provide input and feedback on that intersection. With that, Andrew, I don't know if you have anything specific you want to add to that.
No, I was just going to emphasize what Nate mentioned is when you do all have an opportunity to look at the additional information and suggestions that we've provided to you as a follow-up to last week's conversation about CIT and MCOT and SROs. We would love the opportunity to continue the conversation around that. If you have any desire for additional information. Also, in light of your conversation this evening, I I am hoping that that everyone is familiar with it, or at least is aware that it exists. But I was going to mention that and I was trying to look up the bill number for you right before we began the conversation. But a couple of years ago, Representative Hollins was able to pass a bill through the legislature that creates the framework for the memorandums between school districts and school resource officers, as well as includes some training requirements for school resource officers. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at that already, I was going to suggest that as a potential starting point, or a potential framework or guide for as you begin and continue your conversation around school resource officers. So,
it was just, Andrew, I believe it was HB 460 from the 2016 legislative session. We'd be happy to provide that information. And so, I mean, we've provided plenty of information, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about any of the specific issues any commission members would be interested in hearing about, or answering any questions we might be able to provide some input on. Otherwise, again, we just really appreciate you all giving us an opportunity to provide some input and feedback, and we hope we can continue to be a part of the conversation as you all feel is helpful.
Question, your interest in disabilities, is it disabilities? Is it physical disabilities? Is it mental disabilities, or is it all of them?
So we are what is known as the Protection and Advocacy Agency for the state of Utah. And so every state actually has an agency like ours. We are federally mandated to exist. Organizations like ours were created 40 or so years ago to ensure and expand the rights of people with disabilities across the legal rights of people with disabilities across the nation. So our interest is in ensuring that the rights of people with disabilities are protected. That's all people with disabilities. People of the definition of disability under the ADA is very broad. And so I think we would view it as again, we seek to protect the rights of all people with disabilities.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Cripps or for Mr. Riggle?
Madam Chair, I think this is a good way for us to gather information, get it in writing, and then to have people come to respond to questions. So I think that's a good order of things.
Do we want to keep this as a standing item on our agenda to have questions, continue gathering information? What do you foresee, Commissioner Davis?
I see us inviting people who have specific information to come and to share that with us, and then not as a standing item, but rather as a special invitation to people like the disability people.
And with the recommendations included in the letter at all, is there any action that anybody would like to take with regards to those recommendations, or do we want to include this on our next meeting agenda?
Yeah, well, I have a question. I don't know the feasibility of this. Are we able to collect the data from the Salt Lake City Public Schools in regards to the office referrals or office, the amount of time students with disabilities are sent to the office, and the amount of times that results in a higher escalation. The reason I ask, I spent the past 9 years teaching students with disabilities, specifically in a self-contained class. And that's important data. If we're able to get it, I think that'd be a great starting point as well. Then two, just the role that the resource officer plays is critical within that framework too. And just to know what role that resource officer is working, because I've been in the situations I've been in, the resource officers have been phenomenal, but they've understood who they were working with. They were well trained, if that makes sense. I wasn't in the Salt Lake City school district. I was in the Granite School District, so I'm not familiar with the Salt Lake City School District, but I assume it's probably similar. That's my assumption. So, but I think that'd be a great starting point.
Any further discussion on this issue? And please speak up, because my screen is limited to the number of people it allows me to see. So I'm sure if you're raising your hand, just speak up, because I may not see it. Okay, Commissioner Ahmad, did you want to make that a specific motion, or do you want to put it on the agenda for next time?
I'll save the agenda for next time.
All right, let's move on then to the Partner Pair Program. Chief Brown is in attendance to discuss the voluntary Partner Pair Program that we've discussed in the past. Chief Brown.
Thank you, Commissioner Salazar Hall. Good evening, Commission. It's good to be with you again tonight. We've talked about this partnering program for a couple weeks now, and we've talked about having an officer assigned as a partner with each commissioner. And I've heard some discussion that some like that, some would rather to have small groups where we can engage in different conversations. I think what I'm hearing is, I think what I'm trying to do is maybe put together a program that's kind of a one size fits all. And I think what might be better is if we do both. I'm putting together a core group of officers from different diversities, squads, specialties, ages, that you can, if you would like to have somebody assigned to talk with, I think that'd be a great opportunity. But then I'll also bring a group together, because some commissioners would rather meet in a smaller group and maybe have those conversations. And then if we need to adjust these groups as topics that you want to address, change from time to time, we can do that too. So if that is the direction, and if you like that approach, I will put that together for you. I just need your feedback and input.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any discussion on the Chief's proposal?
I do like having more than one option, Chief. So it's like that people's comfort level could be addressed. So I do like it.
I like that approach as well. I think to have some individuals as well as some group or two that would be available, I think both of those would be great ideas.
I like that approach as well. I think it does address everyone's comfort level. And I like the idea of maybe switching out if you're in a group and maybe you want to do one-on-one. I think that would work well.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Sonoto-Manga on that. That would be nice to be able to switch back and forth between the two modalities.
So do I. That'd be very nice.
And of course, keep in mind, this would be voluntary. Nobody is expected to participate in this program. If you are not comfortable participating in it or do not believe it's going to be helpful, you are certainly not required to for the commissioners. Any other discussion on this specific issue, the Partner Pair Program, as Chief Brown has described the proposed modality? Yes, Commissioner Andrew Worden.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief, for putting this together. Couple things. One, very comfortable around law enforcement. So if I could help be a liaison to anyone who is less comfortable for conversation, I'd be more than willing to do that. And secondly, I just want to acknowledge I appreciate the diversity of assignments and the multiple access to multiple officers in similar assignments, because law enforcement is not a monolith. It's not a all officers are not of one mind, right? So the more that we can talk to, the more we understand the diversity within the department, I think it will help with the cultural element that we're trying to address as well. So I appreciate the breadth of that. Just wanted to specifically highlight.
Chief, do you have a timeline?
We're reaching out right now to officers to bring them into this core group. So God willing, we get through the elections next week, or the debates, I'm sorry. We'll, if you can you give me 2 weeks and I'll come back with a list and we can talk about maybe assignments and pairing up. And then again, if we're going to focus a little more on SROs, we can maybe bring a group of SROs or maybe some leadership. Or you met Lieutenant Zayas last week. She has a good approach and a good handle on what's being taught within the training unit. So with a little bit of notice, I can put small groups together very easily, but I'll have a group that we can pick from individually if you want to pair that way. So what I'm saying is I'll do anything you want to do, but I think this is a good approach.
You said 2 days?
No.
I think he said 2 weeks.
Commissioner, I'll have it for tomorrow.
So do we want to entertain a motion to establish this partner pair program with the understanding that we will be working out the specifics of the program? Or do we want to wait until 2 weeks when Chief Brown can put together a group of officers for us to pair up with?
Well, I would be willing to make a motion that we would plan on having a partnering relationship, and we would ask the chief to be helpful to us in establishing that.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I second it.
Right, I'll now take a roll call on that motion presented by Commissioner Reverend Davis. Reverend Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
Commissioner Prospero.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanatomanga.
Aye.
Commissioner Ahmad.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Banuti.
Aye.
Commissioner Andrew Weirden.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaili.
Aye.
Commissioner Salavi Jr.
Aye.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Shiflett.
At this time, nay.
Commissioner Coombe.
I'd like to abstain.
Commissioner Tedeschi.
Aye.
And I will aye. Thank you. I believe the motion carries. Chief Brown, we look forward to hearing from you in the future about the group that you're going to put together for us and more specifics. So the last item in our policy review this week is a Pew Research study, which was brought to our attention by Commissioner Shiflett. And I want to say a special thank you to Commissioner Shiflett for bringing that to our attention. It was very informative. The research study behind the badge and the article 10 Things We Know About Race and Policing were shared with our previous agenda material. And our previous discussion included the consideration of an internal survey to review the culture and environment of the Salt Lake City Police Department. So this is an agenda item for formal consideration. Do we have any discussion on this issue? And Commissioner Shiflett, I'm looking at you specifically since you brought this to our attention. And I do thank you for it. It was an incredible article.
The only thing I have to say is I thank you first off for considering this. I think it's very important that we first look at what's going on inside. That's exactly why I said to you, I said, for now, I'm going to say no, because it's one thing to get your best officers. It's another thing to identify others who need to address their own biases. So I think this is a very good survey idea. I don't know if anybody's putting it together, if we're going to put a committee together to work on a survey. I know you did say if we can use these same questions, that would be great. I don't know how we're moving forward with that survey, but I think if we can get the information from inside, then we'll have a better understanding of what's going on and how people are thinking and what we need to do in regards to training.
I think that's a good idea. My question though, Carol, and to the chair is how would we get the information from inside? Would we ask the chief to get it for us? Would we ask, how would we get that kind of information? Is that something that our staff, the people working with us could do for us, or just how would we get it?
Well, I personally think once we get the survey together that we have to work with the chief, or we have to hire outside people to work with us, someone who is partial. I'm sorry, not partial. Sorry. So possibly getting someone from outside to work with us on this survey, maybe keeping our hands out of it completely, maybe keeping law enforcement's hands out of it completely, and getting the survey done so that we have someone that is not involved in the process. But definitely do a survey, but I think an outside person would be best.
Is that something you think that the 4 people that we met tonight could help us with?
I was thinking them, but we may have to ask them. We'd probably have to send them the survey, but can we ask you, any of the 4 facilitators, how that would work? It was a survey on policing done by the Pew Report. And the reason I raised the issue was because I saw on the survey that there were problems in-house of racism. There was a difference between African-American law enforcement officers and mainstream law enforcement officers. And I said, well, if there's a problem in-house, then how can we be beneficial in what we're doing if we don't know what we're facing? So I don't know who wants to address that on the facilitators.
Well, Dante is still with us, I think.
Dante and
I'm here as well. I want to just ask a clarifying question, if I might. The agenda for tonight said, labeled this as an internal anonymous survey to review the culture and the environment of the Salt Lake City Police Department. So I guess I just wanted to better understand what we're talking about here. Are we talking about a survey to be given to the broader public to evaluate the culture inside the police department? Are we talking about a survey just going to departmental personnel that would evaluate how they view their own culture?
The latter. It's
The
the latter,
latter.
Dr. Schooler, yes. An internal within the department of the officers who, and probably the other civil employees, non-sworn civil employees who work within the department. Is that correct, Commissioner Shiflett?
It is, and if you'd like, I can put the link here on the Zoom chat, if that's okay.
Oh, that would be very helpful. Yeah. I mean, I guess my follow-up inquiry or my continued interest would be just around understanding what we're hoping to glean, because I think that it would probably be, I would expect, of course, you can't be sure of these things until you do it, but I would expect that a survey given to the police about, their own culture may or may not reveal a lot of new information. I think we just would have to think through the best kinds of questions that we could ask in a survey like that to really get at what it is you all want to know. So I guess maybe I would begin with the end in mind. In other words, rather than starting with let's do a survey, start with here's what we want to learn from the rank and file or from the department as a whole, and then work backwards to determine the best way to get that information, which might be an anonymous survey of this type.
Yeah.
I did post it online, and just to give you a little background, when they originally when the commission originally approached us about pairing with law enforcement, I was opposed to that because I don't see any purpose in doing that until I know who I'm dealing with or until I know what's going on inside the department. So I did post the questions for you to review. Maybe once you review them, we can talk a little more about it. And I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm finding if there's a problem in-house, then what is it going to do for me to sit with that person, to humanize me? I'm one person, but when that meeting's over, or when I'm done meeting with this person and they go to work, they have to deal with the community at large. So I just want a survey of, I just want to see, what are you thinking inside? Did you come in with your biases already, or do you not have any biases? So that's where this all came from, if that helps you understand the background.
It does. And if I might, I think that information would be helpful. My question, and I haven't seen the survey or the article, if we can't reliably disaggregate the information so that we know these are the white officers answering this, and these are the black officers answering this, and these are the Latino and indigenous officers answering this, I don't know how valuable that can really be. And I don't know the demographics of SLCPD, but I'm guessing there's not a lot of indigenous officers, so they're not going to identify themselves in the questionnaire as indigenous, and similarly with black folks. And so that might be the only issue that might arise.
And on the survey, they did identify themselves, but it was an anonymous survey, which, it may be a smaller police department, I'm not really sure. So it may be rather challenging, but it was, they did identify the people by ethnicity on this survey.
Mm-hmm.
I think your point is incredibly well taken, Carol, and I appreciate the thought and the question. I agree with Larry that maybe we may take a moment to pause on that, but so when we were setting up our contract, we did talk with the city about setting aside some resources for polling, so that those resources exist and are at the disposal of this commission. And so we can exercise that when we decide to. That option exists, and with the resources of doing it externally and neutrally. So those do exist. I'm not sure. I don't know enough right now. It feels a little premature to me, but certainly you all would know better. But it's something we can do for sure.
So Commissioner Shiflett, is this something that you would like to make a motion as a specific recommendation to the mayor and city council that they conduct a survey within the city police department?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that to the mayor that we conduct an internal survey of our law enforcement officers for a better understanding of where they are in their own thinking and processes of race and ethnicity. And actually the survey also said, I guess I'm making this too long, and how they are feeling in-house about the race and ethnicity that's going on inside comfort level. That's my motion.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Andrew Worden? I have Commissioner Andrew Worden seconding. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Reverend Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
Commissioner Prospero.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanatomanga. Verona, are you there? We'll come back to Verona. Commissioner Ahmad.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnston.
Aye.
Commissioner Banuti.
Aye.
Commissioner Andrew Werden.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaili,
Aye.
Commissioner Salavi Jr.
He had to leave.
Oh, he had to leave. Okay. Commissioner Eldridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Shiflett,
Aye.
Commissioner Coombe,
Aye.
Commissioner Tedeschi,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanatomanga,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. The motion carries.
Commissioner Salazar,
Yes.
possibly call it the internal climate survey or something like that.
The motion carries as a specific recommendation for the mayor to complete an internal climate survey within the Salt Lake City Police Department. Thank you, Commissioner Shiflett. We've reached the open discussion section of our agenda. This is the opportunity for commissioners to raise items of interest, which focuses on the commission's objective to provide recommendations to the mayor and the council on changes to the Salt Lake Police Department's policies, budget, and culture. Does anyone have any items to discuss? Yes, Ephraim Coombe.
I think just kind of going off of our meeting, our youth subcommittee meeting on Saturday, I think one thing that we really want to focus on is just some of the vague language used, more specifically in the use of force section of the policy manual. I'm not quite sure who can speak to this as far as what we might want to do to address it, or even the explanation behind it. But I think especially where the word reasonable is used throughout several of the lines in that particular section, just trying to understand like who sets that standard of reasonability, especially in the context of where it might say a reasonable police officer or what have you, what constitutes a reasonable it looks like what constitutes a reasonable police officer, what constitutes a reasonable action, or what have you. Because I think that we're getting to a point where the community might disagree with what a police officer might consider reasonable as far as reacting to a particular event.
Mr. Cottrell, do we have time to address that specifically? And I'm going to leave that to you since I am familiar with the reasonable person objective standard, but this is not my practice of law. So I would defer to you on what constitutes the reasonable objective standard in the context of law enforcement. Or should we put this on the agenda item for next week?
Certainly. It probably would be better served to make it an agenda item so that I could be better briefed. But just, maybe the short answer to the question is that a lot of this is sort of developed through court decisions, case law, and some of state law also intertwines with it as well. We can dive into that. And oftentimes it's going to depend on the specific facts of each individual circumstance. But yeah, if you want to put it on next week's agenda, I would be happy to try to work with the commission and sort of discussing that concept from a legal perspective.
I think that may be a good option. I don't want to shortchange that issue because so much of that language is included in policy because it's in statute and case law. So I'd rather not give it a shortchange sort of treatment today. I think it does deserve a greater discussion. Ephraim, is that okay with you for next time?
I'd be more than happy to have that be on the agenda for next week. What would the process for that consist of?
Oh, we just agree to put it on the agenda for next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Any other issues for discussion? Yes, Mahida Tedeschi. Did I pronounce your name correctly? I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's Mater Tedesse. Mater Tedesse. Thank you.
So going off of that, a concern that we brought up last week specifically in the youth subcommittee was the use of the word gesture under policy 300.4. So under the levels of resistance, D, assaultive says the subject attempts or threatens by an act or a gesture to use force or forces against someone else. And I'm just wondering why that word gesture is just left to be interpreted by the police officer.
That is an absolutely valid question. And I am going to again defer to Mr. Cottrell.
Thank you, Commissioner Salazar Hall. Thanks for the question, Commissioner. As far as how that is to be interpreted or why it's in policy, I mean, that might be a question better suited for the police department to explain the policies that they've adopted. Certainly, again, case law, court decisions have discussed these types of use of force situations where a gesture may have been made and whether a use of force in response to the gesture was lawful or not. And so I think that's probably why you may see language about gesture. And if it's something that the commission would like me to, or our office to address, since we're addressing the use of force question, it's something that I can talk to my team about and try to prepare something next week. But as far as the reasons why it's in policy, you would have to perhaps ask the police department, but we could at least provide any the legal background on perhaps how that concept has come about.
Chief Brown, is this something that you'd be able to address at next week's meeting?
Chief has left the meeting.
Oh, he left the
Yes,
meeting. Oh,
yes,
he's here.
sorry, yes.
Here. Sorry, Chief.
Yeah.
Mater, would that be okay to have this addressed at next week's meeting so we're not again shortchanging this issue? Because I do think that is a very valid concern.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's put that on the agenda for next week to have Chief Brown and Mr. Cottrell address the term gesture as it is used in the Salt Lake City Police Department policies on the use of force. Okay, any other issues for discussion today? And speak up because I can't see everyone. Okay, seeing no other issues, I should have recognized our youth subcommittee voting members for this week, Ephraim Koum and Mater Tedesse. They've been fantastic in bringing issues to our attention, but they are the two voting members of the youth subcommittee for today. Thank you so much for being a part of this and bringing some valuable concerns to our attention. Last is the opportunity to report to the City Council and the Mayor at an upcoming work session meeting. I think the question is, do we want to report at this next work session? When are we required to start reporting to them on what we're doing? Anyone know?
I don't know, Madam Chair, but I would think that since we just hired the people who are going to be working with us, that we ought to give them some time to work with us, and then after that. So maybe 3-4 weeks down the road.
I appreciate that, Reverend. I would like to delve a little deeper and really have something to report to the mayor that I can feel invested in and have had an opportunity to really engage with the commission in and craft the best way to do that reporting. So I appreciate that.
It is my understanding that we are a standing item on the agenda for the work session. So if we want to be a part of the work sessions, part of the council meetings, the next ones upcoming are October 6th, 13th, and 20th.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, this is Allison Rowland, council staff. I just wanted to clarify, yes, you are a standing item. The council would be delighted to hear from you, and that's why you're a standing item, so that you're the commission, excuse me, can be heard from at any time. There's no requirement. It's really a question of wanting to reach out to this commission and make sure that you know the door is open for things you'd like to report, and in that sense, also report to a broader public. Thank you.
So then I think it would be appropriate, and please, anyone please disagree with me if you have a different viewpoint, but I think it would be appropriate to wait and allow our new facilitators to really get a handle on everything we're doing, particularly since this has been a very productive meeting and forming a subcommittee, making several formal motions to have Chief Brown and the mayor get started on a few action items.
Commissioner Salazar Hall, I just had a follow-up question.
Yes.
The recent motion that just passed with a recommendation for an internal climate survey, would that need to come before the council, or is that something that can wait?
I believe that was a formal motion to the mayor and the city council to have that internal review done. Internal polling, I guess, is the correct term.
This is Allison again from the council. That was my understanding as well. Of course, I defer to Mark in the attorney's office if he wants to overrule that. But my understanding is it's going to the mayor and the chief first. And if they'd like to present it to the council or need some information from the council, then of course the council would be happy to take a look at it to the extent their agenda allows, which I suspect they will make room for you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, just to add, in my practice of deferring to those people who are much smarter than me, I believe Ms. Rowland has that right.
Okay, let's move on to the youth subcommittee report.
I can start us off. On Saturday, we had the most recent iteration of our weekly subcommittee meeting. At this particular meeting, we were going through different policies within the policy manual. We spent a lot of time focusing particularly on the use of force section, which is kind of the impetus behind the questions that we asked. And we certainly have a ton more. And so I guess one thing I am curious of is what might be the best process for bringing those forward. Because certainly the two items we will have for next week's agenda, I think we're for sure looking forward to, but I know it's not the last of the things that we would like to discuss regarding use of force.
Well, I think if there are issues to discuss regarding use of force, I think it makes sense to include those on the agenda for next time, since we'll be discussing specifically the term gesture and the reasonable person standard. I think that'll tie in quite well. So I think this would be a good time to maybe bring those up and have those included so that we're not maybe neglecting certain areas that are going to tie into what we're already going to be discussing. So what specific issues regarding use of force would you like to have discussed at the next meeting?
I can just sort of read them off. We already had what constitutes reasonable as well as gesture. Also, why running away is considered active resistance. Also, the use of punching and kicking to prevent a continuation of behavior as opposed to like self-protection. Also, it states in one of the policies that impact weapons are not designed to cause serious bodily harm, and I think we had disagreement with that as well. There's also a question we had about medical considerations and just I think especially in consideration of the Lyndon Cameron incident, maybe what policies do or don't or could exist as far as referring to or deferring to medical assistance as opposed to direct contact. And I don't know, I can also maybe send these in the chat because I know that was a very rapid fire list.
A rapid fire list is just fine. We're supposed to keep chat only for technical issues only. And we do have city staff who are taking notes while we're doing this. And of course it is being recorded. So the rapid fire list is perfect. That is just fine.
Okay, sweet.
Chief Brown, Mr. Cottrell, will those be issues you could address at the next meeting as to use of force as a broader discussion?
Yes, I believe so. I'll get with Mark and we'll start working on them. If Coletta would please send us that list of those issues that have been put forward, we can address those as we get them. Thank you.
Ephraim, were there any other issues that that you wanted to have addressed?
I'll defer to Mater if that's okay.
Yes, Mater, are there any other issues?
Yeah, so we also talked about our concerns regarding training, and a couple of things that we noticed was first that not all officers are required to take mental health training. And of those that are, it's only 4 hours out of the total of 586 training hours. Another concern that we had was regarding ethics and mental health training. Well, I already brought up mental health training, but compared to the 52 hours of firearms training, 13 hours of ethics training seems a bit lacking. And we also wanted to know what constitutes like the ethics training? What is it made up of?
So what I can say is that Chief Brown is presently collecting a list of all the trainings that the officers are required to attend and are completing. And in, I believe, 2 weeks was the magic answer for when we will have a list of all of those trainings. So I think in 2 weeks, we will have that answer. And Chief Brown, please correct me if that is incorrect, but my understanding is 2 weeks is when we will have that list. And I believe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Brown, the list will not just be a list of titles, but also what that training includes.
Yeah, Lieutenant Zayas is putting that list together with a quick summary of those trainings so you have a better perspective of what the officers are being taught. And if we need to, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to come back and maybe have further discussion as we go through that list if you'd like.
Okay. And also, Mater, for the letter written by Mr. Riggle and Mr. Cripps from the Disability Law Center included some very interesting notes about CIT and mental health training for officers. It was a little eye-opening for me, truth be told. So maybe review that and then we can include that as an agenda item for next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other discussions?
I do have, I want us to be also careful about not putting too much. That's a lot of policies to review in 1 hour plus. So we may have to prioritize or just make a list because that's a lot of policy. Perhaps maybe the core, when we meet regarding the agenda, we can have that in mind. But that's what we get for getting motivated young folk that are actually thinking about this much deeper than the other old folks.
Yeah, I'm concerned also about putting too many items on the agenda for an hour's meeting. So we need to be very careful, I think, if we're going to do anything meaningful with any 1 or 2 of those, we need to limit the number of items.
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all with that point at all. And I think we could probably pare it down to 2 items per agenda that we can discuss and get at least a good view of them. So we're not overwhelming everybody with our discussions. All right, any other issues to discuss? We don't have a closed session planned for this evening. Does anybody see a need for a closed session today? And of course, that closed session is very limited. All right, seeing no commissioners indicating we need a closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting for today.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Motion.
All right. The September 30th, 2020 Racial Equity and Policing Commission meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Os vidania.
Thank you.